owed more than $13 billion in back pay. Letters sent to the governors of 16 states say the amount represents what the colleges should have been awarded over the last 30 years or so. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Hey, if you're thinking of getting the latest iPhone, you need to stop and check out the insane, amazing wireless offer from Boost Infinite. To learn all about it, just pick up your phone, dial pound 250 and say Boost Infinite. That's pound 250 and Boost Infinite.
Is this the tiger?
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
I'm a bad man.
Doctors treating Colorado's Travis Hunter revealed that the two-way star has a lacerated liver. Hunter was injured Saturday night in the first half when Colorado State defensive back Henry Blackburn delivered a late hit on a pass play. Hunter spent 2 days in the hospital. He will not play Saturday at Oregon and could miss the next 2 or 3 games. Blackburn and his family have received death threats from phone calls and social media posts. Colorado coach Deion Sanders said Blackburn made a mistake, but strongly criticized people responsible for the threats. Sanders said Blackburn doesn't deserve that kind of treatment. Saturday's Colorado State game drew 9.3 million viewers on ESPN, the highest audience in the network's history for a late-night college football game. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
On Monday, October 9th, don't miss the KBLA Talk 1580 exclusive. The tape. 1 year later.
Y'all were coming for us.
Yeah, but Tavis, that's not in my heart. I wasn't coming for anyone like that. I apologize, but that was not me. That's not in my heart. And like I said a few moments ago, I have a solid, demonstrable record of shared power that's real and concrete. That can't be misinterpreted.
Join Tavis Smiley and an all-star panel of political insiders, influencers, and journalists for a look back at the crisis that shook LA City Hall when 4 Latino leaders were caught on tape making racist, demeaning, and derogatory statements about black people and other fellow citizens. On Monday, October 9th, exclusively on KBLA Talk 1580, The Tape, 1 year later. We'll broadcast live in afternoon drive from 5 to 7 p.m. with an immediate encore presentation from 7 to 9 p.m. When all was said and done, was more said than done. 1 year later, are there fractures in LA's black-brown political partnership? And where do we go from here? Don't miss The Tape, 1 year later. Only on KBLA Talk 1580, Monday, October 9th, live from 5 to 7 p.m. with an immediate encore presentation from 7 to 9 p.m. We've got a lot to talk about.
Live from historic Leimert Park in Los Angeles, California, I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm so glad to see you and me back in stride again. Before we get started with today's show, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley and get updates on X, that's formerly Twitter, at Tavis Smiley. By the way, should you miss any part of today's program or want to catch up on previous shows, you can always visit thetavisSmileyShow.com. That's thetavisSmileyShow.com. or wherever you get your podcast, and listen to the Tavis Smiley podcast at your leisure. Another great show on tap for you today in our second hour. 2 conversations. Up first, ever heard the name Ernie Fields? Ernie Fields. Well, we'll shed some light on this often overlooked luminary in the jazz world when we're joined by Emmy Award-winning journalist Carmen Fields on the top side of hour 2. On the B side of hour 2, reparations or no reparations, should there be an apology for American slavery, an apology for American slavery. It's a query that resonates with the profound ethical and moral implications, stirring impassioned debates on the need for acknowledgement and atonement. We'll talk to George Shedler, Emeritus Professor of Philosophy at Southern Illinois University, and you do not want to miss his take, his frame on whether or not there ought to be an apology for American slavery. It's on the B side of hour 2. In our third hour, ESPN and Anscape senior writer Mark J. Spears and famed chef David Lawrence on their new Hulu series, The Conversations Project, a unique blend of talk show and dinner party that showcases a diverse range of black guests while redefining the art of conversation and the culinary experience. That's in hour 3. But in this first hour today, let's unpack the latest on the UAW strike against the big 3 automakers. This is getting interesting. 2 esteemed guests in this hour. On the B side of this hour, how do we choose between being green and being pro-union? How do we balance environmental consciousness with labor support? We'll dialogue with the veteran automotive journalist Jamie Lincoln Kittman on the back side of this hour. We commenced today's show with Harvard University Professor Emeritus John Womack Jr. on the potential expansion of this strike later this week. Professor Womack, good to have you on, sir. How are you today?
Thank you, Tavis, for having me on.
It's my great delight. I'm sorry?
No, should I just launch into this, or do we do any preliminary things? I'm ready to get right into it.
Let's get right into it then. We'll do it like a Q&A. I'll do the questions and you do the answers since you're the expert. Let me start with let me start with the big story. The big story right now, as we speak, is whether or not Donald Trump is outmaneuvering Joe Biden on this issue. There are a number of Joe Biden allies who are raising their voices today, afraid that Trump has already outmaneuvered him by announcing his decision, Trump's decision, to head to Detroit for a speech next week, and it's setting off all kind of alarms, again, amongst those in the Joe Biden camp. One of our guests yesterday, a major union leader, suggested yesterday that Joe Biden ought to get immediately on the picket line with these strikers, these auto workers. And so now, again, the fear is that Donald Trump has already upstaged them. Whatever Joe Biden does now, the narrative will be that he did it because Donald Trump announced he was headed to Detroit to give a major speech. So your thoughts on whether or not Donald Trump is outmaneuvering Joe Biden right now?
Well, I think he is. Biden should have, as soon as this thing started, last Friday or Saturday, Biden should have gone out there right then, long before, hours or days before Trump said he'd go. What Trump will do doesn't much matter. It's what the mainstream media will turn it into, and that'll be that Trump is sort of, outdone Biden, and so that's another strike against Biden. So, I think in a way Trump has beat him to it. What Trump will finally say to the strikers, or what he'll say about the strike, is anybody's guess. But it sort of doesn't matter because just what you say is the appearance of the thing, and Biden's sort of slow response to it.
Biden has always put himself forward as the best friend that labor has ever had in the White House, certainly in a very long time. He proudly says that in a variety of ways every chance he gets. He's the best friend labor's had in the White House in decades. And yet it seems strange to me that on something like this he would get so outmaneuvered, so outplayed. How can he be the best friend of labor and be so lackadaisical in his response to this strike?
Well, I agree. With the Teamsters, it was he made various statements that he was for them and so on, but it didn't turn into a strike. And he didn't really do very much to set himself on the side of the, in a dramatic way on the side of the IBT. I don't think he's done anything much about the SAG-AFTRA strike or the Kaiser Permanente. I think it's just, he's really a middle of the road kind of president, and he can say he's the best friend of labor in decades, but that's all words. And when it comes to action, he's still just right in the middle of the road. I think he's playing to independent voters, and he hopes that they'll, see that he's not extreme in any way.
It's another. It's another, to my mind, Professor Womack, another miscalculation by the Biden administration. My friend Jim Hightower in Texas was always fond of saying the only thing you find in the middle of the road is a dead armadillo. The middle of the road is not the place to be, particularly on an issue like this. Just getting started with John Womack Jr., talking in this hour with John Womack Jr. to begin. Another guest on the back half as we talk about the breaking news on the UAW strike. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
Escalade IQ. This the intro to the all-electric Cadillac, perfection like Zoom. And on a full charge, you get 450 miles without the stop. IQ. This is what I do. Daddy fat intellect since 92. Linked all the way back, panoramic roof. Come with 24-inch rim standard. Ooh, why? Shawty don't kill him. Cadillac diamond in the back, cold chillin'. And when I'm on attack, on the track is no ceiling. Sky's the limit. You hear me? Straight drop, no parachutes. Lay lines like a longitude and latitude. Feel it, beloved, clearly we're hustling. Bussin', truckin'. Cadillac.
For more on the Escalade IQ, visit Cadillac.com.
Available late 2024. GM estimate 450-mile range. On a full charge based on development testing and/or analytical projection. Consistent with SAHA 1634 revision 2017 MCT. Range subject to change prior to production. Annual rates may vary based on service factors, including ambience temperature, terrain, battery age, and condition loading, and how you use and maintain your vehicle.
You're listening to K-Drip, where we play all the best classic water-wasting hits like watering your lawn during the hottest time of the day and leaky faucets. They're tunes from another time because now that we face a hotter, drier future, every drop counts. Despite an extremely wet winter, keep using less water, fixing leaks, and reusing indoor water for your garden. Visit SaveOurWater.com for more ways to conserve. Up next, brushing your teeth with the water on. K-Drip.
Dominique DePrima here. Having a good credit score is one critical step to obtain a loan to buy a home. But did you know that your credit score is just one factor in getting a mortgage loan? Think about this. Lenders also consider your income, your employment history, current monthly debts, the size of the loan, and the amount of your down payment. Whatever your financial goals, U.S. Bank Access Commitment Initiatives support you in reaching them. Access your personal financial goals at usbank.com/access. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Hi, this is LA City Councilman Curran Price, inviting you to the 28th Annual Central Avenue Jazz Festival on September the 23rd from 11 to 7 p.m. For nearly 3 decades, the Central Avenue Jazz Festival has paid homage to the legendary Central Avenue and its influence on jazz history. Jazz, blues, and Latin jazz will be featured on 3 stages of music. Co-headlining are Hubert Laws with special guest Eloise Laws and the Billy Childs Quartet featuring Sean Jones. The day includes plenty of food, merchants, and 4 pavilions focused on youth programming, art, health and wellness, and public resources. Parking is limited, so Metro and rideshare are recommended. Hubert Laws with special guests Eloise Laws and the Billy Childs Quartet featuring Sean Jones. The day includes plenty of food, merchants, and 4 pavilions focused on youth programming, art, health and wellness, and public resources. For more information, visit CentralAveJazzFest.com. CentralAveJazzFest.com. See you on the 23rd.
Sounds different, huh? This is Tavis Smiley.
Emeritus Professor at Harvard, John Womack Jr. is our first guest today as we try to unpack in this hour the UAW strike and what it means. Professor Womack, we are told by UAW that they're going to expand this strike on Friday if some progress isn't made between now and then, and at the moment it appears that's not the case. So my expectation is, all of our expectations are, that on Friday we're going to see this strike expand. When this strike expands, that means what exactly?
Well, they've pitched this as what they call a stand-up strike, but it's really a selective strike. There are about, I think over 50 assembly plants, automobile assembly plants in the United States. And so there's, and that's not counting all the parts manufacturers. Some of them, a few of them belong to the companies themselves, but most of them are just small businesses, but provide indispensable parts. So there's plenty of, and most of them, I should say, too, aren't union. The ones that belong to the companies are union plants, but most of the others are. Some of them are union, but not many of them. But with a selective strike, there was some people have remembered that the Association of Flight Attendants strike in the 90s against Alaska Airlines. They were just a few workers, I think, all told, in 4 or 5 incidents. Maybe only 25 workers, but they shut down. They basically just gummed up the airline's flights, and Alaska gave in, and so did a number of other airlines. And the AFA got a big win. Mm-hmm. The UAW can't do intermittent strikes. In other words, once it strikes a plant, it's got to stay out till the end. But it can do these selective strikes. If they got 3 plants shut down now, and parts of another one at Wentzville in near St. Louis, and Wayne near Detroit, and Toledo. And if those strikes don't work by Friday, mm-hmm. they can call out other big money-making plants.
Yeah.
The GM has a Arlington assembly plant which makes Cadillac Escalade. GM doesn't want to lose that. Mm-hmm. Ford's got plants at Kansas City and Dearborn that make F-150 pickups, and they don't want to lose that. Stellantis has Ram manufacturers in Sterling Heights and Warren in Michigan, and they don't want to lose that. So the choice of this strategy to expand it by selecting different profit centers seems to me very it's well thought out, and I hope it will be effective. Plan.
I would agree. It's strategic, and oftentimes we don't think of unions being as smart and as strategic as they ought to be, particularly these days. As you know, we'll talk about in a moment. For quite a while now, many Americans have believed that labor is on life support in this country. And I want to, again, in a moment, ask you about that and what you make of this summer of strikes, period. It's not just UAW, but all these strikes that are happening in various industries. We'll get your take on that in a second. Our conversation, Professor Womack, about whether Trump is outmaneuvering Biden has hit a nerve. I'm getting all kind of responses from people. I want to just read one here. Tavis, listening to your show right now. I know it's a different day in America, but it's not normal for a president to show up at a strike. The same with emergencies. He sent his labor secretary. Isn't that the point of having a cabinet? That said, it's a different world and a political climate, so I get it. Perhaps he does need to show up. I read that because these are different times. This is a different day, and it may not be typical. It may not be typical to see a sitting president show up on a strike line. But again, this democracy is in trouble. In many ways, one could argue, as I have, that this democracy is hanging on by a thread. Democracy is in the balance. And anything that Joe Biden does, these poll numbers aren't good. They're not good. Anything that Joe Biden does to give Donald Trump any leverage, any leg up in this race is a huge miscalculation. So to my mind, while these may not be normal times, that's the point, that Joe Biden ought to be on that picket line. That's my assessment. But what's your response, Professor Womack?
Well, I totally agree. this isn't the 1970s when Biden started to come up. It's not the 1980s when Reagan ruled. This is not really. I mean, Trump is out of this world, and he's crazy about many things, and he's liable to do anything and get away with it, as you said. It's not normal. Yeah. And if Biden is the best friend in decades of labor, then he ought to show it. He ought to have already showed it.
Yeah, I hate to consider. I shudder to think. I'm talking to everybody listening now. I shudder to think what happens when we look back a few months from now at the miscalculations that Joe Biden made that allowed Donald Trump to win. I'm just saying it. I'm thinking now of Hillary Clinton, and you know the mistakes that we look back on now. She decided not to go back to Michigan in the last days of that campaign to shake hands in Michigan. I mean, all kinds of mistakes and missteps that the Clinton campaign made, and the Clintons are amazing campaigners, both she and her husband. But there were just so many mistakes made coming down the wire in that campaign that allowed Donald Trump to pull off this major upset. And I'm afraid that Joe Biden's going to do the same thing. And this is a huge mistake with all the issues that everyday people in this country are facing, workers are facing in this country. For him to miscalculate this in the way that he is, and it's not just that he isn't going. You saw the story yesterday that he's pulled back his team, the Biden team. They're not putting boots on the ground, as it were, in Detroit. They're helping to negotiate this. They're talking to UAW from Washington, not in Detroit, but from Washington. That's insane to me, Professor Womack. Why are they not there?
Well, I think they somewhere in the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, the powers in that committee, they have decided that they're living in the past. They think they can take labor for granted. But if we know anything since 2016 and before that, but certainly since 2016, you can't take people for granted.
That's right.
They see through it, and not all of them, but plenty of them do. And they won't vote for you, and they may vote against you. Yeah. And so you do something like what Hillary Clinton did, that she just took the Michigan labor vote for granted, and then it wound up biting her.
Yeah. My friend Connie Rice, one of our regular contributors, Connie says all the time to me, Tavis, get your frame right. The conversation doesn't matter if you're in the wrong frame. And I think the Biden White House right now, they are in the wrong frame, and we got to help get them in the right frame. That said, just watching my clock here, what's your read, Professor John Womack Jr., on this summer of strikes? I mean, it's, again, I'm sitting in Los Angeles. This program is heard across the nation, but I'm flagshipped in L.A., site of the strike of the writers union and the actors union, SAG. So there's strike here in Hollywood. We see strikes in the hotel industry all across the country. There are a variety of strikes, and there are threats of other strikes. What do you make of this season of strikes that we are in? What's it say to you?
Well, since, I don't know, it goes back, I think, really probably into the 70s, in the last century, but this rising inequality. Mm-hmm. And I think that what that is certainly since in the last 10, 15 years, since the Depression in 2008, 9, people are mad about it, and then some of them get mad and they lose their mind and they vote for Trump. But the Democrats haven't really in some way recognized that. They're still assuming that they can you just count on their votes. That's why, Reagan Biden sort of takes all the traditional Democratic voters for granted. And that's a bad mistake. And I think, this summer is just an eruption of a lot of that anger. people, as you say, and particularly in California now with the writers and actors strike and Kaiser Permanente, I think, is the biggest company like that in California, though it has a presence in some other states. But it's the people are fed up, and they're revolted against their union leadership, the way they did to bring Sean Fain into the head of the UAW.
That's right.
And O'Brien to run the Teamsters. But it's and polls. I think there are more people now who think favorably of unions than in decades.
Yeah.
Some of them, if unions actually win some of these strikes, and people have to pay more for their coffee because Starbucks is unionized, they might not be so much in favor of them, but plenty will be because they'll be in unions.
You mentioned. I'm sorry. You mentioned income inequality a moment ago, and I want to just tie these three things together. You can't talk about income inequality without talking about poverty and economic immobility. They all go together, right? Income inequality, poverty, economic immobility. It's a trifecta, if you will. What does this season, this summer of strikes, say to you about the fragility of our democracy? When you see workers starting to rise up from California to the Carolinas and all sorts of industries, that says what to you about the state of our democracy?
Well, I think it's in pretty sorry shape. You just look at Washington, where there's not much democracy, but a lot of wealthy people in office and Congress, but they can't get anything settled. But then across the country, it's in very poor shape. The number of red states where they're trying to cut out Democratic voters, that's a very bad sign. I think, as you said before, it's just I think it's just on a string that the thing is holding together.
Yeah.
What it will look like if it falls and breaks, it won't be nice.
What do you think the impact of these strikes will be, or certainly can be, on the economy writ large?
Well, I think if the strike goes on and the UAW strikes some of the more of these plants in Michigan, and I should say that if you look at where the UAW has its membership, it's mostly in Michigan, Ohio, and Indiana. And Michigan and Ohio are swing states. And so if a lot of people go out of work there, it's going to cut into a lot of other jobs. It'll, unless the union itself can stir up a lot of public support, and I think it does have public support so far, that is liable to throw those swing states in the other direction. If Trump keeps outmaneuvering Biden, which I wouldn't be surprised if he does.
That's the scary part. I said it minutes ago, and I say it again as we wrap this conversation with John Womack Jr., Professor Emeritus of Latin American History and Economics at Harvard. That's the rub, that Donald Trump has completely outmaneuvered Joe Biden on this issue. It's a tragedy. It's a shame that the Biden White House allowed this to happen. But you heard him put his finger right on the pulse, if you will. Michigan and Ohio are swing states. If Donald Trump pulls off those swing states this next time around, because these workers don't forgive Biden for not being there when they needed him, you got a problem on your hands. And so I'm not predicting the worst. I'm just predicting the worst. that Joe Biden better get his act together. He better have a Come to Jesus meeting quickly with himself and do the right thing on this issue. I digress for now. Professor Womack, good to have you on. Thanks for your insight, sir. I appreciate you. All the best to you.
Yeah, well, thank you. You have a good day, too.
You do the same. When we come forward, Jamie Lincoln Kittman, veteran automotive journalist, we'll explore the balancing act we have to do between supporting and believing in and having an environmental conscience with our support of labor. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
You're listening to Tavis Smiley. Tavis Smiley. Ranked number 45 on the Heavy 100 list of the 100 most important radio talk show hosts in America.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The FDA is saying no to Neffy, the first nasal spray alternative to the EpiPen for people with life-threatening allergies. In a surprise move, the FDA has rejected Neffy, demanding that ARS Pharmaceuticals do more testing on its nasal spray to support approval. An FDA advisory panel recommended in May that Neffy be approved for kids and adults with anaphylaxis. Former Michigan State University football coach, African-American Mel Tucker, has issued a response after being fired for alleged sexual harassment. Tucker said he was not surprised by the decision but thinks other motives are involved. The coach was suspended earlier this month over allegations of sexual misconduct involving prominent rape survivor and activist Brenda Tracy. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
A problem on the 134 in Toluca Lake, westbound 134 at Cahuenga Boulevard. The wreck is taking up the carpool and left lanes and has traffic stopped from Pass Avenue. Looking at a crash in Alhambra as well on the 10 eastbound at Fremont Avenue. The two right lanes are blocked. Multiple cars involved and they're stacking up traffic from around the 710. In West Covina, the 10 westbound between Azusa and Frazier Street. Things are stop and go through that stretch.
Hey, if you're thinking of getting the latest iPhone, you need to stop and check out the insane, amazing wireless offer from Boost Infinite. To learn all about it, just pick up your phone, dial pound 250 and say Boost Infinite. That's pound 250 and Boost Infinite.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com, and I sell custom blinds designed for do-it-yourselfers. Unlike stock blinds offered at big box retailers, Blindster blinds are custom made for your windows and shipping is free. Don't hire an expensive pro. Do it yourself and save big at Blindster.com.
Is this the tiger?
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
I'm a bad man.
Dr. Street in Colorado's Travis Hunter revealed that the two-way star has a lacerated liver. Hunter was injured Saturday night in the first half when Colorado State defensive back Henry Blackburn delivered a late hit on a pass play. Hunter spent 2 days in the hospital. He will not play Saturday at Oregon and could miss the next 2 or 3 games. Blackburn and his family have received death threats from phone calls and social media posts. Colorado coach Deion Sanders said Blackburn made a mistake, but strongly criticized people responsible for the threats. Sanders said Blackburn doesn't deserve that kind of treatment. Saturday's Colorado State game drew 9.3 million viewers on ESPN, the highest audience in the network's history for a late-night college football game. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Extended Family Outreach Ministry presents Praise Fest 2023, Worthy to be Praised Conference and Concert, September 23rd, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. at the Redondo Beach Performing Arts Center. Morning worship, keynote address, and conference featuring women in creative arts ministry and leadership sharing our stories, His glory, giving all praise, honor, thanksgiving, and glory to God. Don't miss the afternoon stand-up and sing praises concert with the Katinas, gospel singer Babby Mason, Three Daughters, and Kevin Click. That's Praise Fest 2023, Worthy to be Praised Conference and Concert, September 23rd, Redondo Beach Performing Arts Center. For more information and tickets, go to PraiseFest 2023 at Eventbrite.com. Plus, for the next 48 hours, use promo code KBLA48 to get your tickets free. You do not want to miss this day of praise. That's PraiseFest 2023 at Eventbrite.com.
Applications are now being accepted for the City of Los Angeles Emergency Renters Assistance Program. The program provides up to 6 months of rental arrears to low-income residential renters who are at risk of homelessness due to unpaid rent as a result of COVID-19 or other financial hardship. Applications will not be accepted after 6 p.m. on October 2nd, 2023. Go online 24/7 at housing.lacity.org or call 888-379-3150 from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday and see if you qualify. Apply today.
You are now in Big Tobacco's Fantasyland. Welcome. It's a healthier world where they want you to believe that vaping makes quitting cigarettes a breeze. Never mind the evidence that vaping leads to using both. And if you're younger, even better, teens who vape are 3 times likelier to use cigarettes. In Big Tobacco's Fantasyland, the deadliest industry is your friend.
Big Tobacco's idea of smoke-free is a dangerous fantasy for us all. See reality at undo.org.
Ready to re-examine your assumptions and expand your inventory of ideas? More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
We continue our conversation in this hour about the UAW strike and all the issues connected to that. Just had a spirited conversation with John Womack Jr., Professor Emeritus at Harvard, about what happens when this strike expands later this week, as we expect that it will. Now a conversation about how we go about choosing between being green and being pro-union. How do we balance environmental consciousness with labor support? A dialogue right now with veteran automotive journalist Jamie Lincoln Kittman. I didn't make that up. Automotive journalist with the last name Lincoln. That is true. Jamie Lincoln Kittman. Good to have you on Tavis Smiley. How are you today?
I'm good, Tavis. Lincoln is my premium brand.
Yeah.
Just for clarification.
I love it, Jamie. I love it. Let me start with this. Professor Womack and I just had, a spirited dialogue about Trump and Biden. And you've seen the news. You cover this stuff every day. Just want to get your take on this before I move into the conundrum that we find ourselves in as consumers. There's great concern in Biden camp and, frankly, beyond Biden camp about whether or not he's already been scooped by Donald Trump on this issue. Trump announced, of course, he was headed to Detroit to give a major speech. So if Joe Biden does, in fact, show up on the picket line, as many believe that he should, given he's bragged repeatedly about being the best friend Labor's had in the White House in decades, if he does it, he's already been scooped by Trump saying he was going there first, number one. Number two, Biden officials, as you know, are no longer traveling to Detroit this week to help resolve the strike. They're doing it from Washington. I'm just hugely disappointed in the way the White House has just miscalculated and blundered this thing. That's my read. You covered as a journalist. What's your read?
Well, yeah, I think at the outset it's important to note that UAW leadership has been very clear that Trump is not their guy.
Sure.
And
but they've not endorsed Biden though. They've not endorsed Biden though.
No, they have not. Okay. And I think that the White House, to put my cards on the table, I think that the union's demands, in general are perfectly reasonable. And, they're like many industries, the auto industry really is due for a reset in that thing. And it's really unfortunate that I think that the Biden administration has allowed what is basically like a phony baloney dichotomy to be set up, that electric cars are non-union, are going to be built not by unions, and that if you are for union jobs and you're for building more gas cars and and relaxing the standards that the Biden administration passed that will force eventually car companies to sell primarily electric and hybrid cars. So that's my beef with the union. But beyond that, I think that the Biden administration should absolutely be tying any sort of loan guarantees and other things that it gives to the industry to union jobs. And I think that there's an opportunity that's being lost by the American car makers. I mean, the argument you keep hearing is that the car makers, the so-called big three, General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis, which is the former Fiat Chrysler, are the only companies really that have unions anymore. With all the Japanese and Korean and German transplants that have built factories in the South, they have a big advantage in labor costs. While it's true that they have an advantage, I mean, one thing to note is that the advantage is often overstated. I've understood that labor costs are about 5% of a car. So if you're paying 66% of the wages and benefits that a union plant pays, that's saving you, maybe a couple of percent, in your cost. So I think that's kind of, there's a lot of things that cost too much money, and there's no reason that people's standard of living should have been plummeting. So I think that the Biden administration could afford to take a stronger stand on that. But I also think that the car companies would do well to embrace the unions, really, and embrace the environmentalism and the electric future in ways that are different than they are. Whatever they say, they're actually dragging their feet on converting to electric, and they're trying to take advantage of the conversion to basically set up a situation where in this electric green future there'll be no unions at all, and that's really unfortunate.
We'll get to this false choice between balancing environmental consciousness and labor support. We'll get to that false choice, that false dichotomy in a moment here. But let me go back to two things right quick. Do you think at the moment, though, just quickly, do you think that Biden is being outmaneuvered on this at the moment by Trump?
No, not really. I mean, okay. Trump is. I think that Trump is. He's unpredictable always, but he's really not a friend of labor. But I do think that unfortunately, a large part of the the UAW's membership are, at best they were Reagan Democrats, and they just like Trump because he's, for whatever reason, people who like Trump because he's irreverent and says, things that are, not that great from my perspective about loads of things. The proof will be in the pudding. There's a big job for the leadership and the rank and file who are pro-Biden, who are pro-union, to make that case to their co-workers.
What would happen if Joe Biden showed up on the picket line? What would happen?
Well, I think he would upset, the car companies themselves. He would upset some backers and, Wall Street and things like that. I mean, they really get in a tizzy about things like this because they just see, the way it's been running for years. There's been like 50 years of backsliding on unionism. He really goes further out of his way to ally himself. Trump is in a unique position because he can just lie about what he's going to do and what he thinks and change his mind the next day. I mean, he ran with a populist campaign, and in many respects it was appealing to union members. And, if he actually meant what he said, there were several things that Trump said that distinguished himself not only from other Republicans but from the mainstream Democrats, which were progressive. But he didn't mean any of them. None of them happened. In fact, the exact opposite happened. He was one of the most anti-union presidents that we've known in modern times. Yeah. And he appointed a super anti-union guy to be a Secretary of Labor. So, people who believe him this time, after he's done nothing but lie to the labor movement and to the unions and to the car companies, and he promised all the stuff of it at Lordstown, which GM famously shut down, and then there was the electric car plant, and Trump promised, tens of thousands of jobs, none of which ever materialized.
It's the appeal. It's the appeal of this populist message, though, that I'm concerned about. You and I both know it's just rhetoric. But even with rhetoric, this guy pulled 74 million votes last time. And so we can't poo-poo the appeal of the rhetoric alone. I digress on that. When we come forward with the Jamie Lincoln Kittman, veteran automotive journalist, we'll talk about this false dichotomy, this false choice between being green and being pro-labor. But Jamie said something moments ago that I want to probe in a moment, and that is this notion that what the unions are demanding are reasonable. Their demands are reasonable. Well, if the demands are reasonable, and I'm not naive in asking this, if the demands really are that reasonable, that fair, then why is the pushback so significant? Why, to Jamie's point, are the automakers not embracing the unions at this particular juncture? Talk about that when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Seeking the truth, speaking the truth. This is the Tavis Smiley Show.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
For all of us, this generation and the next, there is simply no place in our lives for litter. And yet, it's everywhere we look. And unfortunately, it does belong to all of us. So, let's come together and create a litter-free, clean California, once and for all. Remember to properly dispose of your trash and recycling. Secure truckloads with tarps to keep debris from flying out. Clean out your car when you're at a gas station. Take pride in your community by organizing a cleanup event. Or join a cleanup event near you. Zero litter is the goal. Join us at cleanca.com. That's cleanca.com. Let's do it together. Brought to you by Caltrans. cleanca.com.
Be ready for extreme heat in your area. On days when extreme heat is expected, take action to keep your home as cool as possible. Set your air conditioner to 78 degrees. If AC isn't available, close blinds and curtains on all windows and run fans counterclockwise. Or find your nearest cooling center. Transportation help may be available. Learn more at heatreadyca.com. Brought to you by the state of California.
Hey, this is Zoe Williams, the voice of reason from KBLA Talk 1580. Listen, if you're in the market for the best prices and the fastest delivery for custom-made roller shade, LA Custom Blinds is the place to be. Schedule a free estimate and they will come to your house, measure your windows, and bring a variety of fabrics to choose from. And then come back and install it all for free. The best part is that their factory is located right here in downtown Los Angeles, so they make the shades really fast. All you got to do is go to lacustomblinds.com and schedule your free in-home estimate right now. Tell them Zoe Williams sent you.
Who do you trust to get at the truth? Tavis Smiley. That's who. The conversation continues right now.
So, Jamie Lincoln Kittman, if the demands of the UAW, demands of the union against these three automobile makers, if the demands are not that unreasonable, why the fierce pushback?
Well, I think, they're by the standards of, what the executives today have known, they're shockingly large, 40% pay rise. a 4-day work week, things like that, are things that, they just haven't had to deal with in a long time. And of course, they had so many givebacks in the 2008, bankruptcy, 2009, that they're used to a much different environment. But beyond that, I think, all these CEOs, they look at other CEOs and they see all these industries, basically screwing their workers, and it's just embarrassing for them to, be the ones down at the country club who folded and gave up so much to these people. And, in fairness to the CEOs, I mean, they have shareholders to answer to, and as the race to the bottom in the auto industry has progressed, they're in an awkward position to if they make big concessions, there's a good chance they'll be fired. Fortunately for them, they've been banking $20, $25, $30 million a year, so they're not going to starve. But I think it's really there's a point where why don't they all champion universal health care? They have a cost disadvantage compared to all the European makers and the Japanese makers, Korean makers, where they have national health care. Why are they against it? It costs them thousands of dollars a year to have to pay for health insurance for their workers, and that's not a rational business decision. It's more like, well, we're rock rib Republicans, and we have to show up and play golf with these people who hate the idea of national health care. So I think that's can't be understated as one of the goals. Also they'll tell you that they have to make as much money as possible now so they can electrify their model lines. To which one might say, well, if that's true, why do you keep giving yourself big raises? And I think, it's not just the auto industry; it's the entire society. Yeah. It does beg the question of why there isn't a larger movement. I know the unions have been trying very hard in the southern states, but one of the really anomalous situations is that Tesla, which is the darling of the green movement, or had been until fairly recently, is always been anti-union, has been cited by the NLRB for anti-union activities, right. And they pay less than everybody else while making the highest profit as a percentage of their car's price of any of the car makers. Okay. So there's a lot of consciousness raising that has to go on in the society, among the workforces, and in the government and in the corporate boardrooms.
No, I give that speech to all of my friends who drive Teslas. I'll just leave that where it is right now, but I'm finding myself giving that speech more and more to my Tesla driving friends. I digress. Our remaining moments with Jamie Lincoln Kipman when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Hope, agency, dignity. This is Tavis Smiley.
Can you dig it? Come on!
What's up, party people? It's your favorite MC's favorite rapper, MC Light here. And we're celebrating 50 years of hip-hop, authentically powered by Cadillac. And we're going to take it way back to where it started. It was only fitting that hip-hop began with teenagers at a back-to-school jam in the rec room of a South Bronx apartment complex by an 18-year-old brother. By the way, I'm also sure he had a Cadillac parked outside. He noticed the energy on the dance floor when he switched between two turntables, extending the beats, repeating the breaks, and never losing the rhythms. And that was the birth of hip-hop. And from that moment, it took off.
For more on how Cadillac is celebrating hip-hop's 50th, visit Cadillac.com/audacity.
Boldly go where no man has gone before.
Boldly taking talk radio where it has never gone before. New vistas, new voices, new views, new visions, new victories. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we're taking public media black. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 joins you in standing for education as a right, not a privilege. Charles R. Drew University of Medicine and Science is a private, non-profit, community-founded, student-centered university committed to cultivating diverse health profession leaders who are dedicated to social justice and health equity for underserved populations. CDU does this through outstanding education, clinical service, and community engagement. Recently, Charles Drew University made history by opening only the 5th medical school at an historically black university. Congratulations, South LA, and congratulations to the Dean of the medical school, Dr. Deborah Protho-Stith. CDU is now training doctors and providing $90 million in annual economic benefit to Watts and surrounding neighborhoods. To apply for medical school, get more information, or sign your child up for the Junior Doctors Saturday School program, visit cdrewu.edu. That's cdrewu.edu. At KBLA, we are dedicated to equity in education and ending healthcare apartheid, and we don't black down. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Dominique DePrima. We can all fall into the trap of mindlessly spending sometimes. I know I do it. But one tip for staying on track is when you have an impromptu purchase that comes up, try making a habit of taking a quick look at your bank account balance before you buy it. It's not just about seeing how much you have in your checking account. Just looking at your account might put the urge to make that impulse purchase into perspective and help you make better choices that'll benefit you for the long term. Whatever your financial goals, U.S. Bank Access Commitment Initiatives can help support you in reaching them. Access your financial goals at usbank.com/access. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Smart talk for curious people just like you. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
So Jamie Lee and Kipman got about just 3 minutes left in this conversation. In these 3 minutes, what say you to those who feel like they're being coerced, to choose between being green and being pro-union, since most electric cars, as you suggested earlier, are made in non-union shops here or abroad, mostly in China, for that matter?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that consumers really need to keep in mind. And, you know, it's certainly tough for one person to change that situation. But I think that the Detroit Big Three, the so-called Big Three, they have this situation, if it's as dire as they say, either they're gonna kill the unions, which shouldn't happen, or they're going to figure out a way to deal with it. And I would suggest to them that, and I would suggest to consumers and people who are progressive investors and stuff, that they lean on these companies to embrace it. After 9/11, when the economy was tanking, the car companies got very patriotic and were talking about, America and freedom and blah blah, and buy a Hummer and stuff like that. It would be really okay for them to say, hey, we build union cars with Americans. Elon Musk is selling you a non-union car from a non-union place, China, that's doesn't value freedom, is anti-democrat, and I think they could make it a strong point that they should wrap themselves in the flag. And I think part of America is a strong union movement. The best times that we've had have been when our union movement is strongest. But for the individual consumer, that's something that people have to live with. The truth is that if you look at any big corporation too hard, you're going to, decide that maybe you don't want to do business with them.
No, I get it. The thing about Tesla that always cracks me up is that they've sold all these cars. The story that you've just laid out, notwithstanding that they're non-union shops, that they're made in China, that they don't pay their workers as well, and yet Elon Musk has sold all these cars without a single dime of advertising. These Teslas just keep selling. He doesn't advertise anywhere, but they keep selling.
All credit to them. I mean, they have a really good product. Yeah, they have enough money to be unionized. They should be unionized. That would go a long way to do it. No. But there's nothing about Musk or the way he's done business so far that suggests that that's imminent.
You are right about that. We'll leave it there. Jamie Lee Kipman is a veteran automotive journalist. Jamie, thanks for your insights. Good to have you on. All the best to you, sir.
Always good to hear from you, Tavis. Thank you.
Good to talk
Bye.
to you, my friend. Hour 2 of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The FDA is saying no to Neffy, the first nasal spray alternative to the EpiPen for people with life-threatening allergies. In a surprise move, the FDA has rejected Neffy, demanding that ARS Pharmaceuticals do more testing on its nasal spray to support approval. An FDA advisory panel recommended in May that Neffy be approved for kids and adults with anaphylaxis. Former Michigan State University football coach, African-American Mel Tucker, has issued a response after being fired for alleged sexual harassment. Tucker said he was not surprised by the decision but thinks other motives are involved. The coach was suspended earlier this month over allegations of sexual misconduct involving prominent rape survivor and activist Brenda Tracy. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
A problem on the 134 in Toluca Lake, westbound 134 at Coanga Boulevard. The wreck is taking up the carpool and left lanes and has traffic stopped from Pass Avenue. Looking at a crash in Alhambra as well on the 10 eastbound at Fremont Avenue. The two right lanes are blocked. Multiple cars involved and they're stacking up traffic from around the 710. In West Covina, the 10...